Hello, hello. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Hillary Clinton has been exposed. Of course, we've instinctively known, correct, that she was behind the Russia hoax, the collusion stuff that's really had been on Trump his entire presidency. And I think there was also like little stuff that came out that Obama was kind of aware that Hillary and stuff was kind of like putting this around. But this is like the first time maybe that I think someone very, very, very close like nailed her, named her. And it was Robbie Mook, her former campaign manager in 2016. So I saw that and I was like, whoa. So a Hillary Clinton lawyer is on trial right now for lying to the FBI. And Mook testified today, and he actually mentioned that Hillary Clinton was the person who like had the idea to give information over to the press regarding the Trump server that they really wanted to push, like because everyone was talking about her servers and her emails. So she was probably like, hey, let's make up something with Trump and his servers and his emails and Putin and Russia and all the other kind of stuff. So don't get me wrong. I don't think that she's going to jail or gonna be fined or anything like that for the role that she played. But it is like unconscionable that she had all these lies and that she's in that. I think Salon is like one of the original people who put this stuff out. Like according to, she had one press release or whatever that her person what someone on her campaign put out that she retweeted. So Benny Johnson went back and retweeted and was like, this is false. But talked about how Trump had servers, but she's the one who passed along this information to the press. I'm sure knowing that it wasn't true, but what does it matter when you're smearing someone, you're doing all that you can to win a campaign. So it's really amazing how many like conspiracies and stuff are just centered around like Clinton's like like the vast right wing conspiracy like you've probably heard that before. And when and Anderson Cooper asked Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail in 2016, like, do you still believe there's vast right wing conspiracy theory? She's like, don't you? And she's like, it's just better funded. And the phrase vast right wing conspiracy theory originated when she was in the White House with her husband and he was diddling around with interns. So the vast right wing conspiracy was that her husband was a whoremonger. And of course, that was actually not a conspiracy theory. So what the Clintons do is that they misdirect. They accuse you of doing things that they actually do. So hey, she had stuff that she didn't do right with her servers, so she went ahead and she made up a story about Trump and his servers and threw in Russia. So pretty amazing stuff. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, but that she's behind it. Like we all know that, but I am surprised that Mook named her as being like the person who passed that info along. So I don't know how how much like other press people are really talking about it. But it's the news on the social media, and I saw Elon Musk is retweeting and reacting to this stuff today too. Which, by the way, he said for the first time he's going to be voting Republican. Um, and there's also some hit pieces and stuff that have been coming up with Elon and stuff as well. So I'm pretty sure they're going to try to cancel him for just believing in free speech and whatever. They'll go after him any way that he can. But a lot of people are out here getting red pilled, including over the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. By the way, there's like TikTokers who are against Amber Heard because they've been watching the case and just think she's a liar, I guess. And when when Amber Heard fired her original like PR team and got new people, people started noticing that some of their videos, like reenactments of some of the silly things that she said, like people would act out stuff that she would say on the stand and just be like, it doesn't make any sense as she's describing it. Like, oh, I walked out of the room and then he slapped me, like stuff like that. People would act it out and people would start reporting the videos and they're like, why is this happening? And then mainstream media started reporting on some of these TikTokers and lying about them. And then so these left-wing people who are pro Johnny Depp, but they're just like, I'm not one of those people who say the media is lying, but the media is lying. Yes, because that's what they do. That's what they do. So, lots of red pills to go around. Hopefully, people will wake up sooner rather than later. Also, today I want to talk about this video that of AOC, which she said a couple of ridiculous things. She said some stuff about Israel coming up out against Israel, which is going to make a lot of people in New York very upset. But the squad is very anti-Semitic, so I'm not surprised. But she also went on a rant about abortion and tying it to religion, and I just want to laugh at her, I guess. So we're gonna watch that and dismantle her silliness. But before we jump into it, someone's watching from Pennsylvania. Did you guys finish your counting yet? The race with Oz and McCormick was so close. I think it has to go to recount, I believe. This triggers automatically. I don't know if anyone conceded yet. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you all to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on my website, check out different articles that I've written, check out different merchandise that we have at the store, like the Trump 2024 Make Crack Whack Again. We got the You Are Not That Special mugs. They're so cute. Also have them in shirts. Got the My Money, My Business shirt, which, little rant here. Someone had shared an old tweet about Hobby Lobby they came across my Facebook feed. And you all probably are aware that Hobby Lobby got into a big case and had to sue the government and were willing to like lose it all if necessary, shut down their stores. Because it's a Christian business, and so they don't want to do anything against their faith. And Obama stuff, they were making it so that you had to pay for certain birth control that would harm, like, you know already fertilized eggs and stuff. So they did not want to participate and in that, and they didn't want to give religious exemptions. And so they know that other people are getting exemptions, whether it's for cost reasons, etc., but they don't want to give religious exemptions. So they went ahead and took it to the courts and stuff. But as I was reading back and flashbacking to that time, I'm like, you know what? These people who are like, abortion is nobody's business but your own. I'm like, this is a circumstance where the government was trying to make you participate. So, and we see that all the time with our taxpayer dollars going to Planned Parenthood. Yes, they do other things than abortion. They also inflate their numbers so they can look like they're not an abortion factory, and they very much are. So they go to these clinics. Like, it'd be fine if they weren't doing that. Like, if you're paying money to help kids, like, not get STDs, that's great. Unfortunately, you do, but you do kill their children. So that's what we're not cool about. If you stop doing that, we'd be cool with other stuff they're doing. Not cool about you giving like hormones to folks so they can change their sexes and stuff. Don't like that either. So I'm just not a fan of the organization, and I'd prefer where taxpayer dollars didn't go to stuff like that, but it does. Does it directly fund like abortion because of the Hyde Amendment? Well, there's the Hyde Amendment, but we know people were trying to get rid of it. But beyond that, you had situations like with the Hobby Lobby case where people were trying to force you to pay for this stuff to cover it for the insurance. And if you didn't, then you were going to lose your business or be fined until you just couldn't exist anymore. So just a reminder that people do not stop. They are not just satisfied where they're at. They're always going to push the limit to and try to go to the max, to the max, to the max with this. So it's really not good enough at a time when the phrase was just safe, legal, and rare. Now it's just trust the woman, and if it has to be through 9 months, we're fine with that. Um, which is insane. Which is insane. So just plant your feet in the ground and push to the very end. There's this one dude on TikTok. We are friends, but I think maybe he lost his original account and started another one. And there's this viral video of this young lady who said, if you're a man, if you don't have a uterus, then I need you to shut the bleep up or stand up or something. And so people are like, this doesn't make any sense. But of course they mean if you don't have a uterus, then you don't speak about abortion if in a negative way. But if you but speak up in a positive way. So they're okay with pro-choice men basically speaking out, okay, and backing pro-choice women, but they don't think that pro-life men should be able to back pro-life women. So anyway, a lot of people did responded to this young woman, but my favorite response, and I was just laughing about it, was this man who, elderly man, who's like, um, I have spoke up and I'm going to keep speaking up. And he like had his wallet with him. He's like, I personally donated 2,500. I don't know, maybe he said 25,000, 2,500. That's a big, pretty big difference. But he said he gave a lot of money. He said maybe it was 25,000 to making sure that the Mississippi bill went before the Supreme Court. And he's like, I've got something more powerful than you. He's like, disposable income. And it was so he's funny to me because it was so petty. It was just he was just over it. He's and someone like replied to his video, said it, something in the comments, and he's like, oh, I bet she doesn't have a rebuttal. And he replied to her, he's like, I'm not here for debates. He's like, people go back and forth having debates, and people go to marches. He's like, I'm not getting on a bus and doing all the other kind of stuff. He's like, I'm going to fund stuff that works. He's like, so I will fund nonprofits who will push this stuff through, and because I want results. And so he's like, I got some money to burn. He's like, and then I write it off on my taxes. And I just thought it was his like, I'm over it. I'm just gonna like bypass you guys and just do what's right. I think it's funny because I do debate and have these conversations with people. However, I'm kind of also at the point where it's like I want to be able to give people the facts and hopefully folks will change their minds. But at the same time, I know that there's just a lot of people who aren't going to come to grips with reality about the embryology and all kinds of other stuff. And we need a major culture shift. And I know that takes time. So I was talking to a friend of mine who's really, really discouraged about like, she's like, I'm a rational person. When I'm presented with the facts, I can change my mind, but these people aren't changing their mind. And they're like, what's it really worth? I'm just like, look, when slavery ended, there was just some people mad and they had to deal with the fact that they didn't have slaves anymore. I'm like, there's just going to be some men, women, whoever angry when abortion is outlawed, cross my fingers, that they're just going to be angry and they have to just deal with that. And I don't know, I think it's kind of funny. Just gonna do this. Because we're on the right side of history and you're not. So it was a funny video. I'm gonna post it on my Facebook later and then watch the epic meltdowns because there really was no like middle ground about it. And I know it's gonna tick some people off, but I found it amusing because it was so petty. It was so petty. Anyway, I want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in the studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, I don't care. They don't care. It doesn't work like that. Just here enjoying the space, and they like to uplift conservative voices. And also, if you like what I do here, blacktnews.com, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Every little thing that you do helps, and please make sure that you consider sharing the stream around. Make sure that you're subscribing on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you have social media that Black Tea is. Make sure that you guys are also liking it as well. So before we jump into it, you guys know that I like to start off with something funny, and Elon Musk was trolling a bit. I've seen this meme going around a bit the other day, but Elon decided to share it. So ladies, mansplaining is short for man explaining. I don't know why it's Skeletor giving the life lesson, but I think it's funny, man. He's just so like red pilled, it seems. I'm not thinking that he's a conservative or anything like that. It's just funny for the meantime. But most of the time when I see women using mansplaining though, it's really that the man is right and they can't take it, so they call it mansplaining. I'm That's usually what my observation is. I understand that it's like them explaining something in a an obvious thing in a condescending way, but most of the time when I see women throw it around, it's really the man is totally right, but you just can't take it because you're in your feelings. So I thought it was a funny meme, thought I would share. Okay, let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. So Robbie Mook spilled the tea, and I'm quite surprised. I'm going to play the segment that was on Fox today talking about it. It's just really remarkable to me that they spilled some tea.
Fox News alert on the trial of former Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussman. Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign manager Robbie Mook testified today that Clinton herself approved the idea of giving the Alpha Bank story to a reporter as part of the Trump-Russia narrative. As you'll remember, that suggested that there were connections between Alpha Bank and the Trump campaign server. The FBI looked into that and found nothing suspicious. David Spunt is live outside the federal courthouse in Washington with more. David?
Hi, Kaylee. Good afternoon. There was a little bit of surprise in the courtroom when Robbie Mook, the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign manager, just answered a question casually that she personally approved sending that story to the media. As you mentioned, it deals with an allegation or an accusation about the Trump organization, not the Trump campaign, but the Trump organization having a back channel to a Russian bank named Alpha Bank, which has some ties to the Kremlin, some Russian oligarchs that are close with Vladimir Putin. So to give everyone a little bit of a backstory on this story, because it is complicated, there are a lot of twists and turns. Hillary Clinton had a campaign attorney named Michael Sussman. He is on trial right now behind me in federal court because in 2016, September 2016, he went to his friend, who happened to be the general counsel at the FBI, a man named James Baker, and Sussman said, Jim, I have some information linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank via a back channel, via a computer server. James Baker took the information at the FBI. The FBI investigated. They found out there was nothing to it, Kaylee, as you mentioned. Hillary Clinton's team at the campaign also found out about that information, and we are learning today via Robbie Mook, the campaign manager. She personally was briefed on this allegation about the Russian bank and Trump organization, and she said, okay, go ahead, give it to the media. And that's where we are right now. Sussman is charged with one count of providing a false statement to the FBI. The trial's been going on for a week. It's expected to continue another week. But again, definitely a little bit of a surprise in the courtroom, I think, from not only the government, but the defense when Robbie Mook went ahead and admitted that Clinton herself gave the go-ahead for disseminating that story, which turned out to be false.
Yeah, so I find it pretty remarkable. I don't know how much all of you guys are really, really sort of into the news when and during 2016 campaign. Like I had it on all the time. I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, and not Fox News, by the way. We always had it on CNN because we're like, well, we know what Fox is going to say, how they're going to present the news. We need to know what the other side is saying. So it was like a rule in my office. And I was a creative director, and I shared my office with the digital director, and we always like had it on CNN, and which was great for knowing how to rebut and what to say. And I had hit piece after hit piece after hit piece that was really good. But I just saw Mook like all the time, and after the election, they had like these big like, oh, where did it go wrong? And he wanted to blame I don't know, kind of just really crazy things like that obviously had nothing to do with how Americans actually felt, but wanted to lay blame at so many different other places. And the Russia collusion thing followed Trump like his entire presidency. And obviously we've known that for a while that the Hillary campaign was associated with that. And it's not really shocking that Hillary gave the go-ahead about this. What is shocking to me, though, is that Mook just was like, Hillary was the one who gave it over to the press. So Benny Johnson has been like retweeting some old Clinton stuff. And he has a meme over this one with Elon like glowing eyes saying false, but after there was a line of communication, they claimed this response was out in response to the news report from Slate, which Slate, come on, guys, showing that the Trump organization has a secret server registered to Trump Tower that has been covertly communicating with Russia. Hillary for America senior policy advisor Jake Sullivan released the following statement Monday. This could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. So, this is the kind of stuff that they would put out during the campaign and then continued on with it afterwards, like throughout the Mueller thing, even like pushing forward. Hillary kept on with it. This is an old tweet from Hillary Clinton. I don't have it pulled up in my system. I'm going to read it. October 31st, 2016. 4 things you need to know about the Trump organization's secret server to communicate with Russian Alpha Bank. Donald Trump has a secret server. Yes, Donald Trump. She's so petty. They had all this stuff with Hillary Clinton and her emails and her servers, and they wanted to make it a way to be like, Trump has emails and servers too. She still pushed like stuff with emails if she sees stuff with emails, because she went through so much trouble with it. And they were burning phones, smashing phones, doing all kinds of crazy stuff at the Clinton, camp and all, etc. And so, like, one time there's a news broadcast, and Brooke Baldwin, they were talking about Hillary's team and stuff. No, I don't think it was campaign, but actually like at the State Department and whatever, that they were destroying cell phones and all kinds of other stuff. She's like, hold on. I need a fact check on the fly. She's like, they were smashing phones with hammers, and they're like, yes, they were. As a matter of fact, I put that in my 50 Reasons Not to Vote for Hillary Clinton video, which got over 800,000 views. I don't know if it eventually broke 1 million or not. I have to go back and look at it. But Hillary also said it was a setup to communicate privately with Putin-tied Russian bank called Alpha Bank. When a reporter asked about it, they shut it down. 1 week later, they created a new server with a different name for the same purpose. So they just made up stuff, made up a bunch of crap for the Hillary stuff. And Elon Musk actually tweeted out this story from the BBC about Michael Sussman, Clinton lawyer, lied to manipulate FBI over Trump, which he retweeted that in a reply to Jim Jordan, I believe it was. And other folks talking about how much of a lie all this crap was. Let me see Jim Jordan's tweet. Representative Jim Jordan said Christopher Steele created the dossier. Glenn Simpson sold it to the press. Michael Sussman took it to the FBI, and Democrats and the media lied to you about it all. And so under that, Elon Musk said, all true, but most people still don't know that a Clinton campaign lawyer using campaign funds created an elaborate hoax about Trump and Russia. It makes you wonder what else is fake. It should make you wonder. I'm pretty sure he's also pulling that thread and pushing that because there's folks coming after him hard, and they're probably going to come after him harder, which he actually said that already. A lawyer, this is a BBC article, a lawyer for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign lied to the FBI to manipulate the agency in order to win the election. A court has heard arguments in the trial of Michael Sussman have begun, with prosecutors saying he hoped to create an October surprise in the race's final weeks. Mr. Sussman has pleaded not guilty. He is the first defendant to go on trial and investigation into the FBI's original probe to find Donald Trump, if Donald Trump was conspiring with Russia. The charges arise from a meeting between Mr. Sussman, a cybersecurity lawyer, and an FBI agent in 2016. Mr. Sussman presented that what he claimed was evidence of suspicious internet traffic connecting the Trump organization to a Russia Alpha Bank. The FBI looked into the allegation and found nothing suspicious. Prosecutors say Mr. Sussman lied by not disclosing in the meeting that he was working for the Democrats' campaign. The indictment charges that he claimed not to be representing any particular client and that he presented himself purely as a concerned citizen. That's sus, man. What's more than suspect? Obviously, he did it for political gain for his client. A lawyer for Mr. Sussman denounced that the trial was an injustice at Tuesday's hearing in the Washington, D.C. federal courthouse. Mr. Sussman is being charged by U.S. Department of Justice Special Counsel John Durham, who was picked by the Attorney General under President Trump in 2019 to investigate FBI misconduct in the original Trump-Russia investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. The Mueller inquiry concluded in 2019 that it could find no evidence of any criminal conspiracy between Trump campaign and Russia, though it did determine Russia had sought to help Mr. Trump win. President Trump always said the Mueller inquiry was biased against him, which it was. I'm sure that if there was actually some there that I don't know, Trump probably would have been impeached earlier and arrested. But Trump is one of the most investigated people on the planet, and they never found anything. And I can understand. Some people are like, Trump, just calm down, let this stuff run its course, etc. Blah blah blah. And Trump was just like probably so frustrated because like I didn't do anything wrong, and this was something that really stained the entirety of his presidency. And it's just a huge injustice that Hillary and her team and the FBI and everybody who had their hands on this stuff got away with it to a degree. Not even to a degree. They basically got away with it. We're finding out stuff now. Do I think there's going to be any sort of repercussions with Hillary? I don't really think so. Hopefully, it kind of seems like she's thinking about running again. Hopefully, that is never a thing. And people, as more stuff comes out, people be like, nah, we got to nip that in the bud. But it kind of seems like to me that they were rehabilitating her image. Like, I'm like, why are they giving her a masterclass and Bill a masterclass? He was like pictured with an Epstein like sex slave. I'm like, why are they doing that? Why they let them speak at the DNC convention? Like, especially Bill, right? Because that was right after the Epstein picture thing came out. So I'm like, they could totally just like push them out of like the political system and just kind of uplift new people coming in or whatever. They could just let the Clintons go. But it does seem to me like maybe they were trying to rehabilitate them in a way. So hopefully, as more stuff comes out, they really nip that in the bud. But again, I'm really surprised that Hillary has just been named and just like plainly implicated. Obviously, she was always involved, but this is interesting. Very interesting. I know it's not as maybe as sexy as a lot of other like social topics that we talk about a lot here, but it's important. But it is egregious that Hillary Clinton basically for like 6 years has gotten away with not talking about this stuff, not being asked hard questions about this, and not being held accountable, at least in the eyes of the public, about her role in all this. And if it were a just world, we would at least be doing that. We'd at least be talking more about that and about how the media, who are supposed to be like the guardians of the truth and democracy, and like the Washington Post says democracy dies in darkness, right? Well, they let a lot of people, casualties go, like, and they were the ones who like grabbed the pillow and let them suffocate, to death because they had particular agendas and they didn't like Trump, but they were willing to not cover things that were important, like the Hunter Biden laptop story. I used to think, just kind of like a side note, but that when people were like getting their ballots in and they were like, send it back as fast as you can. And I remember Michelle particularly saying that, Michelle Obama and all other folks, but I'm like, why are they like just pushing this so hard to get your ballot, turn it back as soon as possible? Is it because like they think the numbers right now where they are, that they're good and they don't want people to change their minds? But maybe it was deeper than that. Maybe it was because they were aware of the fact that like the Hunter laptop was in the ethos, and they didn't want that to be a big October surprise and to really shift views and opinions on the election. And even when it did come out, they really did hide it. I mean, the New York Post was the account was like paused basically on Twitter, and they censored the story, even though it was true, absolutely true. Now they're talking about stuff a little bit. We covered a little bit of some stuff that was revealed from the Hunter Biden laptop yesterday, and have been talking about it. And a lot of people try to say that it's not relevant, but it's obviously relevant. They were like sharing accounts, and he was giving money to Biden, paying for stuff, and 10% goes to the big man. There's a lot of shady stuff with the Bidens that the laptop revealed, and the press didn't want to cover it. The press didn't want to cover it because they wanted their guy to win. So these guardians of democracy are not so. Are really not so. But it's interesting. We'll have to keep up with this, see what happens. Again, I'm not optimistic that something is really going to happen as far as like some kind of legal accountability for Clinton, but and I'm not optimistic that the mainstream media will have any sort of accountability for Clinton, because they're not going to have any accountability for themselves as well. That's why we talk about these things, because we don't think the mainstream media is really going to dig into them. But at least some of it is getting out, and some of it we can talk about. Anyway, let's move on to I showed you guys a clip of a hearing the other day of the Democrats saying crazy stuff, the Democrat witnesses as far as abortion, but there was one pro-life woman who was testifying on behalf of, like, I guess the Republican side, and you had a Democrat who asked the question who wasn't expecting this response. So I just thought this was great, and someone did a thug life moment sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys.
Is candidly and openly calling for a nationwide ban on all abortions with no exceptions for rape or incest. And if I've got that wrong, I would invite Ms. Foster to correct me. Do I have it wrong, yes or no?
If we added rape and incest exceptions, would you vote for it?
Okay, I reclaim my time, of course.
So I reclaim my time. Cowards. No, that's a really relevant question though, because people in my experience, when you're talking about abortion, some people will bring up rape and life of the mother, but mainly everyone's like, we don't want you to deliberately kill people. If you have to prioritize a life or whatever, that's the decision the woman makes with her doctor, family, husband, whatever, you know. We just don't want you to like go out your way to like deliberately like kill the baby. Like that's our whole thing, right? So life of a mother really isn't much of a debate, but people will bring it up, but it's not really a debate. But people will bring up cases of rape. Now that's less than 1% of abortions. So if I don't think you can really grant that exception, because it does undermine the whole argument to right to life, that you exist, you have a natural rights, you have the right to life. No one should be able to take away your rights without some kind of due process, right? So just because your father commits a crime does not mean that you should get the death penalty. So I understand people's the arguments for like bodily autonomy, and the woman didn't in that case use her agency to create the child, etc. I understand that, and I've had in-depth conversations about this before, but in regards to the, oh, we just got to allow that because that circumstance, it does undermine the right to life, and you're saying that these particular people don't have the right to life. So just throwing that out there. But if we did grant that exception, that and got rid of abortion in any other case, then we get rid of like 99% of abortions. And obviously the Democrats wouldn't be cool with that. So that's why he reclaimed his time. So it's something I think pro-lifers shouldn't be afraid to talk about, because pro-choice would be like, oh, you dodged that question. But I didn't really think about it this until I saw a video with there's this pro-life young woman named Lottie, and there was a video where a woman was harassing a man and was bringing up cases of rape and etc. And Lottie replied to it, and she's like, "You're bringing up this stuff to make like you wouldn't ban it with those exceptions anyway. You're just bringing this up to make people uncomfortable." And then she told her story about how she was abused as a young teenager, and ended up becoming pregnant. And she ended up having a miscarriage, but she's like, my baby isn't my rapist's baby. Don't and she named her child to help. I think she named her child either Rachel or Rebecca. And and she doesn't like people to refer to her child as a rapist baby, and she's like, it still had value, it still, it didn't survive, and it ended up passing away, and she had a miscarriage, but it still had the right to life. And so she's a fierce advocate, pro-life advocate, and I commend her for willing to open up herself in such a way to tell her story, because she does get awful backlash. As a matter of fact, her account was just banned not too long ago, so now she has to rebuild it. But I didn't really think about the fact that, I mean, are a lot of people bringing this up because they just want to throw a moral conundrum at you? I think that's really the case, because if you did compromise, if we decided to compromise, and that would be a big compromise again, because it cuts the whole right to life argument, in my opinion. But if you did it for the sake of like trying to compromise her bodily autonomy because a woman didn't choose that, if we go for that, but we're like, okay, but the other like 99% of abortions are done through consensual acts of sex, so can we ban the other 99? They're not going to go along with that. So savage response, cowardly rebuttal from our folks in Congress, just cowards. But I want to move on to the AOC video. AOC went on another sort of silly little rant, and I'm not surprised that she says dumb stuff, but they got to get some, I don't know, better talking points or something, because this is just nutty.
Who say, oh, but you're harming a life. I believe this is life. Well, some religions don't. So how about that? Our Jewish brothers and sisters, they are able to have an abortion according to their faith. There are so many faiths that do not have the same definition of life as fundamentalist Christians. And so what about their rights? What about their right to exercise their faith? It's ridiculous. And it is theocratic. It's authoritarian. It is wrong. For people who...
Okay, so I don't think that rant didn't seem it seemed theatrical, but she couldn't quite get there. She tried though. I don't think it really had like real anger and outrage, moral outrage. So a couple things. A lot of people, most pro-life people that I see debate, many of them are religious. Not all of them are religious. One of my favorite content creators on TikTok is an atheist who's pro-life. And I have people who follow me who are pagans who are pro-life, and all kinds of different beliefs, right? And you can still choose to be pro-life. And they don't argue from a religious standpoint. You all know that I'm very religious. I do not bring up religion in regards to that argument unless someone else brings it up normally. I can debate till the sun goes down about how the Bible is anti-abortion, but that's what does that matter to you? If you don't respect that level of authority, it doesn't really matter, and I'm not going to get anywhere. So I would approach that. So I just really have 2 points in the abortion debate. Um, it's scientifically a life at conception that's really not up for debate. And maybe you philosophically don't consider it a person. Maybe you don't want to attribute any value to it, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. You can get into the weeds with that kind of conversation, but to me, there's only two questions. Is it a life? Scientifically, yes, it is. And the second one is, okay, well, then shouldn't this right to life be protected? Obviously, I believe so. So they should have equal protection under the law, and you should not be able to deprive them of their rights unless there's some sort of due process. So those are really my 2 points, and I like to start from there, and we can branch out from there, and we can discuss where you believe life is, but it really is at conception, etc. So did you notice that those 2 points did not contain any scriptures? Okay. It didn't contain any scriptures. Now, here's the problem with AOC and talking about religions, people's faith, believing different things, which there's Jewish people like Ben Shapiro and stuff who would argue very fiercely. And but there are Jewish people who've argued with me and said, hey, life starts at first breath, which fetuses breathe in the womb. They get their, oxygen through the placenta as well as their nutrients. So life definitely starts in the womb in the very least. So there's that. But there's a scripture in Genesis 2:7 about how God breathed the breath of life into Adam. He wasn't conceived. Man probably didn't have a belly button, right? He didn't have an umbilical cord. He was created, dust of the earth, whatever, and assembled. And God doesn't do that for everyone. We just kind of have this natural process, right? So if that's your basis for believing that life doesn't start until first breath, that's really silly. And we know that scientifically life starts at conception. So if your religious belief says that life starts at any other point rather than conception, you're into a false religion. Frankly, I mean, it's just a scientific fact that life starts at conception. So if you have a different belief, that's cool. It's not based in reality. And you could be like, well, that's belief. Okay, but your belief doesn't give you the right to kill people. Like if your religious belief was, which I've been told that Black people are cursed by a Mormon kid, so we'll go with that. Maybe that would, if you wanted to use that as a basis for discriminating against Black people for whatever reason, would that be okay because your religious said so? I don't think so. Earlier I mentioned Hobby Lobby because I was reflecting about that earlier. Do you think AOC would be like, Hobby Lobby shouldn't have to pay for contraceptives that end a unborn child's life? Do you think AOC would do that and stand up for their religious liberty? No, not really, because I recall her going on an epic rant, and not epic in a good way, just like a lot of talking. It did get a lot of plays and stuff, but it was nonsensical. But she said every time someone mentions religious liberty, it's in the name of bigotry. So that's not true. And she comes off as a bigot herself, I believe, when she says stuff like that. But I don't believe she would stand up for Hobby Lobby and other people who are exercising their religious liberty when it goes against something that she does not believe in. So your rights aren't superseded because someone has a different belief. Especially when that belief is, let's take someone's life. So if this is like the arguments that people would use, which, by the way, President Biden used the same argument. Biden's like, other different religions think different things about where life begins. Okay, well, we're not basing our rights based off of religion. We believe so we talk about God-given rights, but you don't have to believe in God to believe in God-given rights. They're just natural rights that we come into existence with these rights. No one gives us these rights to life and so on. So it's really interesting that you have people who say, keep your religion off my body in regards to this issue, yet at the same time, they're trying to use religion to support it. But they'll get upset if you quote like, hey, the Bible says thou shalt not kill. it's really something. It's really something. So where are all these folks that are like, hey, don't use religion? Where are these pro-choice people are like, you shouldn't do that, AOC? I haven't seen that. The backlash to that. Someone said this is the only time they don't believe in science. That's not true because they believe men can get pregnant. The gender stuff, yeah, they don't believe in science when it comes to that either. They believe in some kind of pseudo fringe kind of science or whatever, but they trust the political science. It's not science, it's political science. They also didn't trust the science when it came to the vaccines and other kind of stuff like that. In New York or whatever, you still got like I don't know if they're still masking kids, but right now, but they like have it for the longest time. There's a convention in New York. I'm thinking about going to. Me and my sister were talking about it because we overheard some vendors talking about how the New York Comic-Con is really good, and I've been to their version in Chicago, but everyone was like the New York one is really really good, and maybe the second best one, maybe compared to like maybe as far as maybe bigness compared to like San Diego. I've never gotten out to San Diego. I've always want to have a booth out there, but hasn't happened yet. But my sister's looking up the requirements because I'm like, I'm not getting the vax, I'm not getting the jab or whatever. And she said that you still have to wear masks and this is out in like August or October, something like that. And they still expect you to wear masks in New York at a Comic-Con. Now, a lot of people were going to be in costume and wearing masks and stuff, but I'm like, why? We know they don't work. We know these masks don't work. There was someone who's talking, an official who's talking about a study that was done, I think in Japan, about their masking, and they found that it didn't really stop the spread. The only way that it really did stop the spread was because when you see someone masked, it just kind of gives you like a instinctive like, oh, let me stay away from them, sort of thing going on. But it's not because your cloth mask is going to stop these teeny tiny particles from coming through and infecting someone else and giving them COVID. And nor does the vaccine stop you from also spreading COVID as well. So once that information came out, and it came out pretty darn early, by the way, the aggressive authoritativeness should have come to a close. But it couldn't come to a close because there's too many people who got too much power by enforcing all this kind of garbage. So no, they don't follow the science. They don't follow the science in the least bit. Not at all. And it is funny that they'll be like, global warming, 98% of scientists believe that, in global warming, it's like, okay, or climate change, because they have to keep changing the names because it was like cold and it was hot and it was cold. So really just like climate, it encompasses the whole thing, but the degree of how much we affect the climate is varied between different scientists. So that's not an accurate sort of way that they portray that information as well. But biologists agree that life starts at conception. There's no other point to which it can, and whether there's no other point. I mean, once the egg is fertilized and you're on your way, and the fetus just needs like time and nutrients, and it's rapidly developing. It's pretty much a miracle. I don't know if all of you have seen sonograms of babies in the womb, but it is fascinating. It's amazing. But that's why organizations don't want people to see their babies on sonograms before they have an abortion. A friend of mine, the one who's the pro-choice atheist, she got an abortion at 16. Her father forced her to do it. People were saying, oh, you're going to be homeless, no one's going to love you, and they're like, well, God will forgive you, and all this coerced her into it. And so she went to Planned Parenthood, and they did a sonogram. They wouldn't let her see it, and they're like, well, you won't be able to see anything. And it was like at 8 weeks or something, so that they lied to her. She would have been able to see something. And she didn't realize that they had lied to her until she got pregnant again. I think when she was married in all that kind of stuff. And she got to see her baby on the sonogram, and then it clicked like, oh my gosh, these people lied to me all these years about what they made me do to my baby. So she's a fierce pro-life advocate. One of the things that I say is that I don't believe women have true informed consent in regard to this issue. And AOC saying stuff like, is it a life? Is it a, in quotation marks. There's a difference between it being scientifically as far as biology, being human and a complex organism that is rapidly developing and will be a normal baby in 9 months, God willing, if nothing goes wrong and if it goes without a hitch and stuff, you don't have to sprinkle some magic. You don't need to put in some chemical X for it to be like a real girl or something like that. It's just gonna be a normal baby. From the moment of conception. You don't have to do anything else really besides just give it some time, and don't do anything too crazy to push it off course, especially not having abortion. So it's really crazy not to believe in the science behind that. But if you don't give it value for whatever reason, we can have conversations about that. But a lot of times when people talk about why they want to exclude a fetus from having any rights, you can draw similar lines outside of the womb. Like there's this person I was going back and forth a bit today and yesterday, very disturbed kind of young woman, but she was like, a fetus isn't a fully developed human. I'm like, a newborn isn't a fully developed human. Neither is a toddler. Neither is a 14-year-old. Like these aren't fully developed people. Like what you go through in the womb, those are just stages of development. So people do not have really consistent standards when they come to that sort of stuff. Like people would say sentience, but they wouldn't draw that line outside. To be truthful, it just really depends on wantedness from the mother, because there's no such thing as an unwanted child. I mean, people are willing to adopt. There's waiting lists to do that. So if anyone is like, well, no one will want my baby, I might as well get rid of it because it'll grow up unloved. You don't know that. That's just speculation, but there are people willing to take it. So AOC is just full of nonsense, but are we surprised? But they need to get some tighter messaging about this, which AOC says crazy stuff all the time, but she's not the only one who doesn't have a good argument about this stuff. I mean, the video with the, like, would you support, like, are you going to be so radical that you're going to not have exceptions for this? And they're like, well, if we compromise on that, would you be willing to ban the rest? And it's like, I reclaim my time. Really? We're saying like full stop, just trust the women. Beta O'Rourke in Texas, like, just trust the women. You don't trust women in any other circumstance, by the way, but you want to trust the woman exclusively to this, including if she wants to have an 8-month abortion or 9-month or something like that. You'd like to just trust the woman. No, I'm not saying that a 9-month thing, like 5 minutes before it's born, is a thing that's I think is going to be on the rise or anything like that. But if you're willing to defend that, how far are you going to push it? How far are you willing to push that? Anyway, that is the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, I'm really fascinated with this Hillary thing. I'm still a little surprised. About Mook thrown under the bus. And do you guys think she's going to end up in court and called to testify or say anything as far as this trial? You think Durham's going to drag her in? She's had to, answer a lot of questions before, so it would be interesting. I'm sure she would fight it. But if they only expect it to go another week, maybe not. I think someone said nope. I wouldn't give my hopes up, but it seems really relevant since she was the one who told him to give it over to the press. And what either Mook is lying or she's gonna lie. So I would really like to see them press her. But I am surprised Mook threw her under the bus, and I don't even know if how much thought he gave it before he said that. But um, it's just amazing. One other thing someone did mention in the comments, and this is actually really a big story that they do want to have some kind of treaty with WHO as regard to like pandemic response, and that would be a rapidly terrible, just terrible thing if we decided to give any of our sovereignty over to WHO deciding how we are going to respond. I understand coordinating things on a if there's a global pandemic and having conversations and other things like that, but WHO is in the pockets of China. I'll never forget this video. If you haven't seen this video, there's a video of someone from Taiwan talking to uh, a director, someone at WHO about the WHO, about when are you going to like accept Taiwan? And they're just kind of paused and like, did you hear the question? And like, no. And like, well, let's move. And she's like, I can repeat it. He's like, no, let's just move on. Cause he totally heard her. But, and then she tried to like press again. He just dropped out of the call. It was, I don't know, scary, I guess. How much they're in the pocket of China. And of course, there's a lot of good evidence that is there the final smoking gun that's like it was definitely in a lab in China. I don't know about that, but there's plenty of good reason to believe it all originated within a lab in China, and they really dragged their feet about allowing them to get rid of sort of evidence and other kind of stuff. So we shouldn't be trusting China. China is having severe lockdowns right now, egregious, inhumane lockdowns right now, and I do not want WHO to have any sort of power about how we're going to react in these sort of responses. Now, I guess you could always be like, screw you, we're not going to honor our commitments if they make some kind of nailing down of it. But this is something that we do need to be pressing our politicians about. And but I don't know. If Biden's already made up his mind, I don't know what we can do. But just want to let you know. Okay, God bless you guys.